If you're looking to learn how to shift, well, then you probably need to be taught correctly. I'm going to give you some tips that you probably haven't heard before coming up. Okay, so first let's talk about the clutch. The clutch has, you can engage the clutch and then you can engage the clutch brake. The clutch brake is when you are at a stop and you need to slow the gears all the way down to a stop in order to slip it in gear. Okay, and the clutch brake is only going to be engaged towards the very bottom. So that means that you have to push the clutch all the way down in order to engage that clutch brake. And you know, on older trucks, if that happens to be going out, well, then you're going to have to depress it all the way down to the ground. So, but while you're cruising, if you are actually shifting using the clutch, which I don't recommend, but you know, learning that's not bad practice. You don't have to depress the clutch very far. It's only, you know, it's only a few inches. You can lightly press on the clutch and you can feel that there should be, you know, no more than 2 to 3 inches of play, but you really only have to depress it just a few inches beyond that in order to engage the clutch to get it in and out of gear. So keep that in mind. You do not have to press the clutch all the way down to the floor while you're rolling. Another thing to keep in mind is now this is on a 10-speed, you have a low range and then you have a high range. On the low range, your RPMs, or the distance in between first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, it should be about 200 RPMs. Okay, so if you're running along and you go up to, let's say you accelerate to about 1400 RPMs and then you want to upshift, well, then your RPMs, where it's going to slip in properly, is going to be right at 1200 RPMs. So you have 200 RPMs difference on the low range. Now, when you flip over to the high range, you now have 400 RPMs difference. So that same 1400 RPM, if you're going from 6th to 7th, is now going to be, it's going to drop you all the way down to 1100 RPMs. And you know, it seems like that might be insignificant. Oh, I don't need to learn how to drive like that, but it can really help you out as far as really trying to get it in gear. It's not something that I would focus heavily on. I would start on the low range side of things. Obviously, you're going slower, and it's going to be a little bit easier to see. But it'll help you get a feel for it, and especially if you're learning how to float, then you really want to know, you want to have that feel for how big of a difference there are in between these gears. And then my last tip is going to be, if you lose a gear, let's say you're driving along and you can't get it into 7th gear or 8th gear, whatever, and then you're floating, you're obviously going along in neutral. The easiest way to figure out what gear you need to be in is you look at your speedometer and you figure out what speed you're going. If you're going 15 miles an hour, you take the 5 plus the 1 and that equals 6. So you should be in 6th gear. If you take the 25, 5 plus 2 is 7, and then you could put it in 7th gear. Now this works on a 10 speed. I don't know if it works on a 13 or an 18 speed. Can't imagine it being too terribly much different, but it might be. So keep that in mind. This is going to work on a 10 speed. But that's always going to that's always going to get you into gear if you lose gear. You'll be able to figure it out, and you'll be able to get it in gear, and you'll be able to get this truck moving down the road. I almost forgot the low range, so my apologies for the road noise. But the low range side of things, once you get down to 10 miles an hour, then you're going to actually start dividing by 2. So at 10 miles an hour divided by 2 is 5th gear. And obviously 8 is 4th gear. 6 miles an hour is 3rd gear, so on and so on. If the engineers designed it that way, whoo, that was a great idea. So now I'm just going to show you how easy it is to run through these gears. It's not difficult whatsoever. All right, so we've moved over to the on-ramp. The trucks in the truck stop just weren't cooperating, and you know what, that happens sometimes. So we're not gonna sit here long. It's a nice wide shoulder, so we're safe. But just for illustration purposes, I'm going to show myself running up through the gears all the way to 10th, and then we're going to close out this video. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down. I leave it up to you. Consider subscribing and ring that notification bell so you know when my next video is coming out. And I won't be able to say it at the end, so just remember, stay driven. All right, here we go. Starting off in second. Now we're to fourth. Fifth. That's a habit for me, always flipping up that high range. Now we're going from 1,500 RPMs down to 11. So there's a 400 difference in between fifth and sixth. Now we're in seventh gear. Eighth. Almost there. No big deal. One of these days it just clicks with you. You'll be able to shift smooth as butter. But the smoothness really comes from knowing your differences in the RPMs. In practice, of course. All right, we're nice and clear. Well, there we go, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you